Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk specifically about my preparations to run a Game of Thrones sequel arc in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Alright, so recently I recently ended a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition session with my normal players, Reggie and Norman, and the way we structure our games nowadays is we have a 2-hour session, a 2-hour game session once a week. So we play weekly, and we play most of the time we play online, right? So we're currently running it online just because it's 2020, 2021, and you know the troubles that means, right? But the way we run the sessions, you have we have a half an hour on ramp and a half an hour off ramp, right? So we actually run from 8 p.m. Eastern Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and players can essentially log in. They can call into my conference line on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and then they can leave as late as 10:30 p.m. So what this means is that both Reggie and Norman, if they have any admin questions or something they really want to talk about, not just that can't be answered in one or two in a Facebook message, and they want 5 or 10 minutes of conversation, they can come on at 7:30, and we could talk and kind of knock out whatever admin question they have. The other reason why we have that is if they're available, or if I always come on at 7:30, but if they're available, they can actually come on, and we can just have some shoot the you know what I'm talking about. We just kind of chit chat, right? It's a chit chat time, right? So we have about a half an hour chit chat time leading in and half an hour chit chat time leading out. No player is counted late unless they're coming in after 8 p.m. I'm very fortunate. That almost never happens. And then and also at 10 o'clock, people can jump off the line and feel no remorse for that. Or they're welcome to stay on for another half an hour and just talk about shows, about life, whatever. It's really nice. It's a good on-ramp, good off-ramp. Good on-ramp, good off-ramp, right? So we were recently talking. I recently just finished Game of Thrones. Now, the reason I finished Game of Thrones is I just got a new cell phone in our house, and that gave us HBO Max for free. It was the first time I was ever able to actually watch Game of Thrones because I never got HBO before. Now I have HBO for free, HBO Max for free, and I was able to finish the Game of Thrones series. For me, it was called Game of Fast Forwards because I had to fast forward through all those really awkward scenes where people didn't have clothes. But I'm a fan Joe Christian, so I gotta skip through that stuff. But yeah, I kind of got the gist. I understood where it go, and I read all 5 of the books that George R.R. Martin wrote, so I didn't have any problem keeping up, right? So it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I have some quibbles with the ending, just like everybody else. I definitely would have ended the series with Daenerys. I think Jon Snow should have embraced her and ruled with her. Done. That would have been the best ending ever, right? I did not like the ending that they had. That's okay. Overall, my complaints are only quibbles, and the reason why is I really recognize what Benioff and Weiss did. They created the most successful, long-standing, one-place depiction of fantasy within a television series ever in the history of humanity. That you can't argue with success. That's the other thing. Is like when your success is so high, people just need to bow down and say, hey, I give it to you, right? And that's what I do with Game of Thrones. There's no equivalent. Game of Thrones is unparalleled when it comes to television fantasy series. Nothing even comes close, right? For me, the biggest takeaway was just seeing the dragons. The dragons were incredible because I really love Dungeons & Dragons. Half of that is dragons, and the fact that we got to see how dragons would move, how they would react, what it would be like to ride on one's back, what a dragon would look like in combat. These are incredible, absolutely just stellar, incredible events, right? And we got to see it. So this is really, Game of Thrones is very much coming close to bringing us Dungeons & Dragons on the small screen, right? So it's really important, right? So, but when we were talking about it, Reggie was like, "Oh, so you're gonna watch the prequel?" And I was like, "No, I'm not gonna watch the prequel." And they're like, and Reggie was like, "Why aren't you gonna watch the prequel?" And I was like, "So one, here's my take on prequels. Prequels are for coward authors. I truly believe that. Right? What's the best prequel that's ever been done in the history of cinema? You can't think of one, because there isn't one. They all suck. Right? Like, all prequels are horrible, right? Nobody wants them. The only people who want them are people who are authors who are like, oh, I can get more money and not move the story forward one single inch and take no risks and tell stories about trapped people where if this event hasn't happened, they can't have any character development and you'll pay me money for this? Yeah, sign me up, right? So the only people who are fans of them are creators, because it's easy money for creators. But prequels are, without exception, just horrible content, right? So I'm like, I have absolutely no interest in a prequel to Game of Thrones. What I want to see is a sequel. So at this point, when me and Reggie start talking about the sequels that we would want to see, right? So Norman comes on, and he's like, sequels to Game of Thrones? Yeah, and so we started talking about it, right? And before we were done talking, we had 4 stories that we wanted. We said we each had different ideas on what direction the sequel could go, right? And when we were done talking, Norman was like, well, we don't have to sit around and wait for HBO to grow a pair. We could do this now, right? Like, we could do this in Dungeons & Dragons. We could tell the sequels to Game of Thrones right here in Dungeons & Dragons. Let's do it, right? And I was like, I'm totally down. So these are the 4 sequel. So we have decided on a 16-session story arc, okay? And we will be telling 4 distinct sequel stories to Game of Thrones, right? And so I'm going to use a mnemonic to tell you about all 4 of them. So we're going to do Snow Arya, Dany Stark. Okay, let's do it. Snow. So the first one is going to be the story of Jon Snow returning to the Wall, okay? And then the story of how Tormund Giantsbane and Jon Snow actually expand out the influence of Castle Black into the Wildlings territory and make a new peace with the Wildling people and with the creatures and the environment beyond the wall, right? Fascinating. We think this is going to be awesome. So basically, it'll be ranging parties going from Castle Black deeper into Wildling territory, reestablishing relationships with the Wildlings that are still there, finding maybe some survivor Wildlings, and then also maybe also building castles beyond the wall, fortifications that could be held by Jon Snow, by the alliance between Jon Snow and Tormund Giantsbane. And we're very excited about this. This will be ranger heavy, right? Of course, we'll be using a ranger character class from Dungeons and Dragons to do this. Of course, we'll have some fighter class in there. This will not, and one of the nice things is it's going to be a break. No wizards, right? So really no wizards at all. We'll deal with the the maesters through the sage background, and we're really excited about this because I think it gives us a story to tell, a ranger fighter barbarian heavy story without magic, which will be a different feel for Dungeons & Dragons. And we feel very much that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition gives us every single tool we need to create and do this. We won't really need to expand it out very much at all. Okay, so that's the Jon Snow, Tormund Giantsbane Wildling campaign, Wildling sequel campaign. Next, we're going to do Snow. Next is Arya Goes West. All right, so we're going to pick up right where Arya heads west on the ship, right? And there's going to be the segments of this sequel campaign. Oh, by the way, this 4-session sequel campaign will be Arya. First session will be on the ship. There might be a second section on the ship, and it'll just be overcoming the monsters that she sees on her journey to the west of Westeros, which is on no maps. And actually, we'll be mapping literally in the players, Reggie and Norman. Reggie's going to be playing Arya, and Norman will be playing the ship's captain, right? And so, basically, very excited about this campaign. So we'll actually be mapping out islands between Westeros and the land to the west of Westeros. They will be encountering monsters, and they will be encountering other ships, right? And so the first part of it will be this naval excursion, right? When they land, the second part will be Arya building her adventuring band, right? So basically, Arya and Norman will be the 2 player characters, and they will pick up each 1 to 3 additional player characters, and those player characters can be rangers, they can be wizards, they can be, so how do you deal with wizards within Game of Thrones? Essentially, you can put wizards in because you can put wizards and clerics and even warlocks directly into the game, because whatever is west of Westeros doesn't have the same bound rules as Game of Thrones itself. So we can introduce some of the character classes that are less prominent within Game of Thrones. And certainly clerics, actually, arguably a wizard is a maester is simply a cleric with a sage background. It's kind of true, and like they don't worship a god, they just worship knowledge, which Dungeons and Dragons allows now. So I think that's the way we would build out the maesters. But I think you could really, and I think with how we would do wizards, we would never allow any wizards to go beyond third level, because very clearly Game of Thrones is a very magic low setting. It's a low magic setting, so we would keep it constrained and keep it within those 2 to third level. But that would be the next campaign, is Arya going west, her going on the naval excursion, her gathering her team, and then using that team to explore the kingdoms beyond west, to the west of Westeros. Very exciting. The next one is probably one of our most exciting concepts that we're really, really down to run, and that is a band of player characters with allied NPCs, adventuring, specifically questing to find Daenerys Targaryen's body. So Jon Snow did the most horrible deed and killed Daenerys Targaryen. I'm totally against that. I think it was one of the worst parts of that series. Should have never happened. Should have never been written into the show, personally. But we're going to keep counting canon when we're telling these stories. And one of the things is the Unsullied and some of Varys' spies. There are going to be literally hundreds of people who would be insanely dedicated to returning Daenerys Targaryen's body to, I think it's called Dragon's Mount, or is it Dragon's Spire? I can never remember. To the castle where she landed when she came from Braavos and landed on Westeros for the first time. The place where all the Dragon's Glass was. And so this would be a 4-session campaign, sequel campaign, specifically about finding Daenerys Targaryen's body wherever her last dragon flew her off to, and returning it to Dragon's Mount in order to be buried there, right? And being a place of honor. Very excited about that. We're really think that is an awesome concept and really gonna have a lot of fun with that. And the last sequel concept that we're going to be running is specifically a concept for so you have Daenerys Stark. The last one is the Stark War. So we are convinced, Reggie, myself, and Norman are all convinced that there would be no standing peace between Brandon Stark and Sansa Stark. Sansa is brilliant, and the people in her in the north would definitely follow her. And we think that Brandon Stark would do things that would upset Sansa Stark, and that would not allow the kingdoms to live in peace. And there would be a war that would break out between Brandon Stark and Sansa Stark. And so we would specifically play Reggie and Norman would both play player characters within that battle. They may even play player characters on opposite sides of the battle, right? And if we do that, we're going to do a 1x1. Now, that would double the length of that campaign, because there would be 8 sessions rather than 4. We haven't decided on that. So at this point, we have a 6... and actually, we may switch off every 15 minutes. Literally every 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 20 minutes here, back and forth. I think both players are patient enough to wait and sit through that. And we would definitely be using some of Matt Colville's Kingdom combat material in order to run that. But right now we are planning on using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition to run the Arya Goes West campaign, to run Return Daenerys Targaryen's Body to Dragonmount for Burial campaign, to run the Tormund Giantsbane Jon Snow Wildling Settlement campaign, and last to run the Stark War, the war between Brandon Stark and Sansa Stark. Those are our ideas. We're really excited that we, because we're so blessed to be skilled Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition players and Dungeon Masters, we don't have to wait for HBO or for George R.R. Martin to give us a sequel. We can write our own sequels, and we can tell those collaborative stories together. We're really proud of that, and we're really excited about that. What about you? Do you have any ideas for us for doing sequel campaigns? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any ideas that you think we missed, let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.